Welcome to Pub in the Desert, where we bring you curious, honest conversations about faith and the human experience. I'm Matthias Miller, and I am here once again with my co-host, Kevin David Kridner. And we're going to recap our three guiding principles once again before we dive in. And they are first, you don't need to be fixed, you need to be known. And we define love as knowing and being known. Second, we approach difficult topics with genuine curiosity. We aren't here to win some kind of argument or anything like that or debate, but we're here to understand. And third, we don't come with preset agendas. We're here to let conversations unfold naturally and then follow where authenticity leads us. So go ahead and pull up a chair, grab a drink, and let's explore what union looks like with God, with others, and with ourselves. So, Kevin, today I love having some kind of like hook I can throw in the water, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't have anything, so I really hope you've been thinking. I know you have been thinking. You're always thinking about interesting things.
Something.
Something.
Yeah. Well, I like that it struck me as the last part of the intro, we just we just no preset agendas. We just let our conversation go where it goes. Like if you've watched any of the podcasts up to this point, like you know that that's true.
Yes.
There is no preset agenda.
I
Well,
mean, I
there's a
think,
few different threads. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I have like two threads right now. First of all, we were talking a little bit about comedy and freedom of speech and truth telling. And then I also wondered how you are such a masterful reader of conversations so as to find the proper pauses to inject yourself. So teach me your ways on that as well.
Honestly, like it's developed over years and years and years of being on Zoom and being like sometimes there's poor connections and sometimes there's good connections. And when there's a poor connection, it's always so frustrating because they start talking and then you think they're done and then it continues on and you just keep apologizing to each other back and forth. There's nothing more frustrating to me than a inconsistent connection on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever video chat you're using, and you just like want to have this deep conversation, but the pauses are so awkward, and the face freezes, and it's a funny face, and like all that kind of stuff. So I just decided to wait until I'm absolutely sure that everybody's done talking, and then
And obviously, I don't wait until I'm absolutely sure. I had a boss in my early days who would refuse to talk to anybody on cell phones. He would only talk to people on landlines because he
Mhm.
could tell the difference between cell phone latency and landline latency. And it was for this very reason. And he
Yeah.
just hated it, drove him crazy. I also have a friend of mine that we get on Zoom. Whenever my connection freezes, I can pretty much predict I'm going to get some kind of text message from him with the weird face that I'm frozen in.
Right. Right.
True friend.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what it is in me, but like I absolutely despise phone conversations. It's not fair. I did for the longest time. I'm more okay with them now, but I absolutely despised phone conversations. And I think because I don't despise video calls, conversations, that kind of thing. I think it's because I can't see your facial expressions or your body language or that kind of thing. And so I would much rather have a video call or obviously in person. Um, yeah, I just despise it for
Yeah,
that. I think for that very reason.
there's a book called Verbal Judo that talks about I mean, there's a million studies, and I can't pull up the stats right now. I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but the amount of communication visually, and the moment you go from visual to audio only, it's like you have to hyper tune your senses, and there's still a lot that you miss.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I had a visceral reaction to that term you used.
Verbal
Hyper,
Judo.
no,
Oh,
hyper attune your senses. Oh man. I just recently went back into the classroom. Hadn't been in a classroom in that formal setting in like 14 years. And yesterday I came home. It was only 4 hours. Yesterday I came home and I was exhausted. And I had forgotten how exhausting it is to be in a classroom. Like I could do manual labor 12 hours a day and not be that exhausted. And I think it's that hyper attuning of senses because you have to be connected. You have to see where they're at. Are they struggling? Do they know what's going on? All that kind of stuff. And just be on and aware. And that is so exhausting. So exhausting. I don't feel that here.
Yeah.
Like this is peers having a conversation. But in that environment, I'm responsible for your taking in the information. Are you understanding? Or getting it? Like all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just on, and like I just came home just like wiped out. Like I'm not a nap guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I took like an hour and a half nap yesterday. And luckily I set my alarm because otherwise I probably would have slept through all my other appointments in the afternoon.
I have a friend of mine who says that he has a quote. He says, "Your kids don't have a learning disability. Your teachers have a teaching disability." So then I think, I mean, this is part of the it's part of the cost of doing a job well. Um, and it is a difficult job when you actually stop to think about it. Like when you think about how many different like you're getting a wide variety of people that different levels of intellectual development, cognitive development, emotional development, physical development, as much as we try to slice them by age. But then also you have just differing styles. You've got different home situations that impact learning. You have different personalities, different interests, and it's
And then you put 30 of them in the same room.
yeah.
I mean, like there's 30 individuals that you have to do your best to check in with and see if they're understanding and like that's a lot. It's a difficult job. And not even breaking it down by age, but even smaller than that, breaking it down by birth month within that. There's so many studies that have been done as far as, and I was one of these kids. My birthday's in July, end of July. And so I went to school shortly after turning 5, always the youngest in the class. And I graduated high school when I was 17. So I was always like technically a year behind developmentally. And it showed up in math. Like I was convinced I didn't know how to do math. Like I just wasn't good. Like it just wasn't my thing, that kind of thing. And just struggled through it my whole career. And then like the first teaching job I got was a small Christian school and they needed a math teacher. They're like, "You're teaching math." And I'm like, "Oh no." And I was probably early 20s, somewhere around there. And I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna dive into this book. I'm just gonna read it. And it was like basic math. It was sixth grade basic math kind of thing. And but I was scared. And like I dove into it. I'm like, oh, this makes sense to me now. And then I just kept going. Like they need an algebra teacher, geometry, algebra two, all that kind of stuff as I moved on schools. And I just kept like being curious and learning from it. And finally it struck me as like, oh, I wasn't developmentally ready for those concepts when they were being taught, and that was never explained to me. And it just was a little time developmentally, and then I was good to go. And so having that process, and there's the kids that are born, they're older, the oldest kid in the class versus the youngest kid in the class, and maturity level as well within that environment is huge. So it's a tough job. It's a tough job.
It, it's a tough job. We're not going to redefine the education system and the process of the model. So, as you were saying before I jumped in with my
No, no,
biggest
no. See,
question,
thing I was thinking about yesterday, given the climate in our world right now, specifically within our country, and the dialogue that is happening, which is no dialogue whatsoever. I see this idea that there's such a thing as pure evil in this human realm, And there's also something, such a thing as pure good. And I just don't think that's real. The assassin is pure evil, and the victim is pure good.
Right.
And I just don't think that exists this side of heaven, this side of the eternal. I believe that pure evil does exist, but I don't think it has flesh and blood form. And I believe pure good exists. I just don't think it has flesh and blood form.
Outside of one man 2,000 years ago.
Yes, thank you.
Just to
It's
clarify.
it's an important caveat. Thank you. I meant us.
I mean, right. I get it.
I view him as outside of us.
All of a sudden, there's this explosion of dialogue about what Kevin believes about Jesus. Did you hear what he said?
And probably rightfully so at that point. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, no problem. No, like I've been, I hate this. I hate how much. I mean, I say I hate this. Well, okay, let's turn around and accept it and figure out how to become friends with it and adapt it and grow and learn from it. But I was recently thinking, it's like I was confronted with this yesterday. Like it's very easy to take a black and white approach to life. Like it's way simpler to say, you just you suck. Like than it is to say, well, okay, so here's your lane, here's not your lane, um, or in the case of what you're talking about, I was fascinated by your post, by the post that you made about that because it's fascinating to me what the outworking is of the idea of pure good and pure evil. If you have the idea of pure evil, then you end up scapegoating people, and we've done it. We've had it done to us. Like it's the way of humankind. It's what happened to Jesus. He became the scapegoat. But then it's also on the other side. If you have this definition of pure good, you have somebody who can't be held accountable because and there is no room for admission of their shortcomings or failures because which ultimately which you and I both know is it's not real. So it leads to disillusionment, despair, and I think there's a lot of people who've had some collapse of faith in some capacity because of somebody who was supposed to be pure good, and um, and it's really difficult. It's really difficult to come to grips with situations that are devastating and tease apart those pieces.
Right, right. Brennan Manning, in I think it was in The Furious Longing of God, he makes this statement. He says, I lived for 6 months, 9 months in a garbage dump in Juarez, Mexico, ministering to the people who lived in the dump, who would find their food there, something to sell there, that kind of thing. I lived as a volunteer in a Swedish prison, who the warden believed that priests should be inmates there and live amongst the population. So nobody in the prison knew that he was a priest.
Wow.
He was just part of the population. Lived on the streets of New York City with a ministry, I think it was called Covenant House, who ministered to the male and female prostitute community within New York City. Sometimes young adults, 13, 14 years old. And he makes the point, he goes, I did all these things, believing that one day I would be like Mother Teresa. And he says, pretty impressive, right? Yeah, right. It's the quote from the book. And I'm starting to see that, like, how much of what we do is our effort to make others believe that we are pure good, to avoid the condemnation of the pure evil. I've been in that place. I've been in that place where somebody has thought I was pure good. And it doesn't matter how much you say I am not. Like, there's a dynamic within us. We want an idol. And then there's times where I've been been perceived as pure evil. And that's not true either. But that one lands home and it's hard. That'll rip your soul apart. But what
Yeah.
is it in us that needs that? Like we mentioned the term scapegoat, which is an Old Testament term. Like the idea of the scapegoat is you would put the sins of the nation on this sacrifice, and then you would send it out into the desert to be eaten, to be destroyed. And we do that. We want to put our sins on somebody. And I say we intentionally, me, you, all of us.
Right.
Yeah, this isn't just a them over there problem. It's an us, a we problem. It's a union problem.
You and I have had conversations about what this looks like organizationally. Like it's like I mean we see this all the time. Like we have a problem, we've fired the source of the problem, and now things are going to get better, or we now have new ownership. Um, and sometimes genuinely these changes bring with them the cultural and behavioral shifts that are needed to fix some problems that exist. Other times it's like I mean, it's like, all right, we have something, we have a soundbite, we have a news announcement, a press release or something that now it's kind of a release of pressure, and now we can stave off the crowd
Yeah,
for a while.
it was this guy.
It was this guy.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious about how much of this stuff comes down to, uh, uh, this is not coming from an expert position, but I was recently listening to somebody talk about how our brains are hardwired for simplicity. Like this is a poisonous spider, so don't hang around it, run, kind of thinking.
Mhm.
And okay, this is a friend. Um, they're safe. You can hang around, or you know, whatever. And those opinions or those patterns get formed off of very few occurrences, sometimes only single occurrences, especially in your formative years. So if your early experience, I remember as an example that I remember my brother coming home from a bike ride, and I don't even know what happened. I kind of think he broke his arm. I'd have to actually ask him. I was pretty young. But there's a dog that ran out and knocked him off his bike.
Wow.
And so I I immediately had well, I still to this day have a big skepticism over dogs. Like anybody's
Mm.
walking their dog, it's like I don't know, it's
Give it a healthy distance.
healthy distance and be hyper vigilant. Like, is this thing gonna come tackle me, or is it actually like, that's my default, you know, posture
Yeah,
towards dogs. And it's less so now than it used to be. But
right.
that's an example how a single event can rapidly form a pattern where it's like, okay, this is danger.
Yeah.
And like how much of this is just the design of our brains being hardwired for safety,
Mm.
but maybe it's not all of it.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating you say that. You bring up that example. Conversations in class. One of the students said, "So I'll do like I'll stop in the middle of the lesson and be like, tell me one thing about you to people, just like let's get to know each other, kind of thing." And he said, when I was a baby, I was attacked by a dog. And he goes, I have a scar on my lip, from where that happened. I was like, oh, did you get stitches? He's like, I don't even remember. I don't know. And my next question was like, are you still like afraid of dogs? Do you have difficulty with dogs? No, no, we have dogs. I love dogs. There's that too. Like, how do you
Right.
overcome that?
Right.
Like you secondhand witnessed this experience. Like your brother had this experience and you saw what happened, the fallout from it, and you still like have a hesitancy there. This was firsthand, and it's no, fine.
Yes,
We are
exactly.
such curious creatures. And I want to take a second to reiterate what you said just a second ago. We are not experts. We are two guys here having conversations. We are not experts by any stretch of the imagination. We're just curious. But how does that work? Like, because for you, to a certain extent, the dog represents evil
Right.
because it caused harm to somebody you love. That's a very powerful force. It's a very powerful force. Malcolm Gladwell talks about this concept of near misses. I think it was in David and Goliath, one of his books. Maybe blank. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Tipping point. Who knows? There's all of them. But he talks about the Battle of Britain, and they actually did a sociological study during the Battle of Britain, like because Britain's just getting pounded by Germany from the air for just months and months, over a year, just destroyed. And they're wondering what effect this had on the emotions of the individuals who lived there. And what they found was people who had near misses, like they were in a building that was bombed and they survived, or they were close, all that kind of stuff. It actually emboldened them. It was almost this sense of like that bomb landed on my building and I'm still alive. There's like an empowerment in it. Whereas those who were just reading the newspaper articles or knew somebody who had been involved in that, they were the ones who were traumatized. It's almost like if we experience something and we live through it, we're emboldened. But if we hear about it, there's a powerlessness to it. Like a couple friends of ours lives up in Bend, Oregon, and they went on a European vacation, uh, May, and he was a little sick before they went, and he got progressively worse throughout the trip. And then by the time he got home, like he had to be hospitalized. It was like a lung infection, respiratory, all that kind of stuff. He went into complete organ failure and was on life support.
Wow.
And thank God he survived. I talked to him last night. He's alive and well and recovering. But his wife like went through it and was experiencing it and was in a very powerless position. Is he going to live or is he going to die? Young couple who've been married just a few years. And the trauma she's experienced is so much greater than what he's experiencing.
Wow.
Yeah. And like you would think that like he has this near death experience, that would be a very scary experience, but he's almost empowered by it. My take. I don't
Right.
think he would use those words,
Right.
but she's still really struggling, and understandably so. No judgment on that whatsoever. She's really
Right.
struggling with it. I think of like situations of like you're a parent, like losing a child. The statistics say that the loss of a child more than likely is going to mean the end of that relationship. And I wonder if that's just because of the powerlessness of being in that position and like, what can I do?
Right.
These are all very real things for us as human beings, and we can look at all the statistics and we can look at all the methodologies and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're human beings living in a world where evil does happen, good does happen, but how do we deal with it when it's completely out of our control? I don't know a good answer to that question.
Right.
I remember it was, I think, the 20-year anniversary of September 11th. So what was that, 2021?
Right.
Midst of COVID, September 11th. We got a call from my mom, and they live about 3 hours north of us. And so we had to take your dad to the hospital. He had a bowel rupture. Like he's in this little emergency center because they kind of live in a smaller community. They didn't have a full blown hospital there, so he's in this emergency center. And like, you guys need to come up. So my brother and sister and I drove up and went and spent time with him, and they decided they needed to airlift him uh, down here, actually down south, where there was a medical center. But at the same time, there was fires going on all around them. So all the helicopters were engaged in either transporting people or, water drops or, that kind of thing. And I remember sitting in that emergency hospital room, and my dad was just in pain. Just like it was a bowel rupture. Like people say, like that's the most painful thing you can experience. And you usually don't last more than like an hour in that situation from sepsis, from pain, all that kind of stuff. That dude lasted 6 hours.
Wow.
And we finally got him onto the helicopter. And my brother and sister, understandably so, like we're just so like distraught by this. They couldn't like go. And so like my mom and I walked him up there because they needed help putting him on the helicopter. And I remember putting him on the helicopter, and the last thing he said to me was like, I always wanted to go for a helicopter ride. Just my dad. Like, and I'm just like, should I laugh here? Should I not? I just laughed, and he laughed and pushed him in, and took off, and then we take off to go down, drive the 3 hours down south to meet him at the hospital. But I remember there being such a powerless feeling, so scared driving. They were gonna the helicopter crew told me they would call me if there was an issue in flight or like when they landed, letting me know that he landed. I feared that phone ringing that entire 3 hour drive, like in the entirety of it. I'm by myself. I'm just dreading that phone call, and it comes, and I see it. I'm looking at it. I'm like, do I pick it up? Do I have to pick it up? Like like how much I hate the phone.
Right.
So I pick it up, and the pilot goes, we just landed. We're offloading him. He's on his way into surgery. And just a sense of relief
Right.
and just tears just cried. And we get there, and they go into surgery, and essentially, like, they can't repair the bowel rupture. And so, like, it comes to the conversation of, like, do you want to resuscitate him or, all that kind of stuff. And we're having this conversation, and like the surreal nature of having a conversation like that.
Right.
Like, the person who gave me life now needs me to decide whether they live or die. The powerlessness of that conversation. And my mom and brother and sister, like, understandably so, were having just like such a hard time. They couldn't make the decision. And so I just said, you know what? Let's just let it play out as God has it play out. If he takes him, he takes him. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Like, and we'll just allow God to do his thing. And we all agreed on that, but like still it was like we're sitting there waiting. And so that was on a Friday, and then he lived through Saturday, and he died Sunday afternoon. And it was just like, it's just powerless. It was just powerless. And like to be in that position where you are so dramatically affected by an event, but to have zero control over how that plays out. How do you deal with that as a human being?
So how do you deal with that? I mean, so how do we try to deal with that? Let's like, isn't that a good place to start?
It's a great place to start.
I mean, don't we try to, it's very easy to go back into should have known, should have done, like replaying it, like if I would have, if I would only have, fill in the blank, if somebody else would only have. And it's almost as bad as the near miss because it's almost the, I mean, as much as the near miss can be empowering when you survive it, the near miss of, man, if I would have just done this one thing can be
Right.
almost as debilitating.
Yeah. Yeah. This is going to be story time with Kevin because I've got another story.
I love it.
So my brother, when he was in seventh or eighth grade, so what's that, like 13, 14 years old, he went on a hunting trip with my dad, my uncles, and then some church friends and that kind of thing. They used to go up to Wyoming, and my brother had to come back because he had school, so he could only be gone a week. He couldn't miss that much school. And then this pastor of another church and family who was part of the group said he can ride back with us because we've got to come back. So the pastor, his two sons, my brother, they're driving back. So just outside of St. George, Utah, they're driving back, and one of the sons is driving and he falls asleep. And long story short, horrific car accident. They kind of like go down. He falls asleep, drifts into, like on if you've ever been on the 15 on the way to Vegas, there's like two lanes and then there's a culvert in between. Went down there, woke up, came back up, and like it flipped. So my brother was like thrown out of the front windshield, 13, 14 years old. And like he survived, which was awesome. But I had that near miss, not that near miss. I had that viewer, like secondhand viewer trauma, because all I remember, because he was 13 or 14, he's 5 years older than me, so I'm like 8 or 9. I remember sitting at the breakfast table, and then my mom getting a phone call, and her losing it, like crying, upset, da, 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 and she's gone. That's my memory. I know objectively that's not what happened, but
Right.
that's my memory. Like she's gone. And I'm like, where? Like, I don't, my sister was still at home. I don't remember her being there. The next memory I have is the next day, my aunt is there watching us. But like, I don't remember anything from the, I don't know if I went to school. I don't know any of that. I don't remember. And so, like, for years, I could not tell that story without emotion, like without breaking down. And even now, it's still hard to tell it. But that's the thing. Like, as an 8 or 9 year old, how do you process that? How do you understand that? And only until we never talked about it. I mean, it was a story that was would be referenced but never talked about. And probably only in the last couple of years have my brother and I actually talked about it. Like I understood what he experienced, and then understood what I experienced, and there was healing that happened in that because we each got to tell our story around it. But at the same time, it was like for the longest time, so 8 or 9, so probably for 30 years, 35 years, like there was nothing that like I couldn't talk about it just because it was so damaging to me. Like the story was so wonderful about how he's laying bleeding on the highway, and some truck driver stops, bandages him up, calls the Flight for Life. He gets taken on a helicopter to Vegas and straight into surgery, and he survives. And all like the story around is just a miraculous and amazing. But that was the story was never like what I experienced. And not to make it about me by any stretch of the imagination, because it objectively was not about me. It was about us, what was going on to our family. But like I guess I just felt all alone in that for the longest time until my brother and I like had that conversation. And I had talked about it with therapists. I had talked about it with spiritual directors, friends, my wife, all that kind of stuff. But that didn't do it. It was I needed to have that conversation with him. And like that was like a second hand, like your brother, with the broken arm and like that was the second hand thing. And to your point in that, and I didn't even think about it until this moment, but I'm deathly afraid of falling asleep while I drive. Still to this day. I don't think it's an irrational fear because I don't experience it during the day. But when it's dark and I'm driving, like I'm deathly afraid of falling asleep, and maybe it's tied to that.
This is an irreverent comment. My friends growing up said
Please.
said the solution for that is go grab $100 bill and hold your hand out the window and you won't fall asleep. Um,
You know what I've found that works for me? I have to chew sunflower seeds at night while I drive. It'll keep me awake.
yep.
I won't have that like it soothes the fear.
Well, and there's probably something even physiological about, I don't know. There might be
My
some,
jaw's working or
right.
whatever the case. Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea. We're not
Again, we're not
experts.
experts.
I'm not an expert here.
We are not experts.
It works for
We,
Kevin, guys.
that's it. Not everybody.
Yeah. I don't know about the $100 bill. I've never tried that. No, this is absolutely fascinating to me because lends perspective. Because again, simplistic rational thinking, like, okay, it must be really terrible to go through hard things. No, it's actually worse or it's not universally, but it's often worse to watch someone that you love go through a terrible thing. Um, and and in some ways, it's like, I mean, you can spiritualize it. Like there is a grace for the things that we walk through, but how do you access grace for I don't for things other people are going through that you want, and maybe the difficulty is that you love them so much, and if there's anything you could possibly do to change the situation, you would, and yet you can't. Um,
Right.
I don't know that there is a good explanation, but it's fascinating to me to. Um, it makes me reflect a lot, like on my own experiences of how much of what I experienced, how much of the things that shaped me were actually um, we're really just watching other people suffer. And and I think one of the challenges with the storytelling thing is it is such a beautiful story in so many ways. And there's almost this guilt of everybody else has such a beautiful version of this story. Who am I to impose my brokenness on this beautiful story? Or, I mean, there's a million ways this can play out. I had this in so many ways. My childhood was so good, or this experience was so good. Who am I? Why do I have to be the one to rain on the parade and like
Yeah. Who am I to say it wasn't?
who am I to say it wasn't? What's wrong with me that I experienced it differently when all the rest of the world seems to be okay with it, but it affected me like this?
Right.
And maybe this goes back a little bit to the need for pure good, pure evil. Maybe we need stories to be like this was objectively good, this was objectively not good, and part of the challenge that we have leaning into the idea of union of it being our story is that we have to be able to hold the paradox and the tension. There is a part of this story that is so beautiful and so redemptive, and there's part of this story that is really tragic and really difficult, and that is the whole story.
Right. Right. Again, the reference Brennan Manning again. At the in the intro to the Furious Longing of God, he starts off by saying, uh, and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially the point is like I'm Brennan. I was an alcoholic. I'm no longer an alcoholic. That's part of my story. I was a priest. I am no longer a priest. That's part of my story. I was a married man. I'm no longer a married man. That's part of my story. And he says the complete, full story. Only God knows. And that story is I'm a sinner saved by grace, loved unconditionally by God in his furious longing. And that's the paradox, right? That nobody wants to talk about. Like I've heard people talk about Brennan Manning and some like just absolutely idolize him and love him and sainthood. And then some demonize him as a heretic, and all he talks about is the love of God and not enough about sin and judgment and that kind of thing. And he's leading people astray and that kind of thing. And like it's like maybe both of those are true. Maybe
Right.
we absolutely despise the full story as human beings.
I don't know. I don't know if the motives for this is good or right, but there's also part of me that's like, okay, then can you please bring your part of the picture? Because there's a part of the picture that he's bringing. So what's your part of the story? You have a perspective, but if you just if you obviously it's just a them problem, it's never a me problem.
Of
But
course, it's them
of course,
always.
but if I obviously if my perspective isn't welcome into the conversation, then there's a point at which just bow out. Like we're not going to beat people over the heads to try to persuade them. But if I withhold my opinion and perspective, then I am part of the problem. Um, maybe one person was never meant. Like I say, maybe I'm very happy to be bolder with that statement. No single person was ever meant to carry the whole story or the whole truth. That's too much to put on a person. And
Well, there was one who was meant to carry the whole story and the whole truth.
you
I
were
got to
waiting.
return the favor.
You were waiting for that. Vengeance is mine,
But
says
does
Kevin. I will repay.
right?
Just
Doesn't that give you an insight to the weight he carried? We're so resistant to the whole story, to the truth, and he carried the truth. That burden that we consistently avoid, he willingly took on himself. Man,
yeah.
that's a humbling moment right there. But to your point, yeah, like we're just resistant to carrying the whole story. And if you think you're not, you're probably more than anybody else.
Right.
I'm not resistant to. Yeah, okay.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Awesome. Ah, the powerful thought, right? All human experience, the beauty, the horror, the love, the hate, the pain, the suffering, everything he took on himself willingly.
Well, the crazy thing is it means that he had to have understood the can you imagine being in walking through life and being able to perceive both the good and the both the pure and the impure within each person.
No,
I,
no.
I mean, it's really difficult when you've got religious leaders who are, just for the sake of example, religious or political leaders who are taking advantage of other people through positions of power, and but doesn't it make it really complicated when you can actually see the good that's in them?
It muddies the waters.
But it's the waters. And there's some line at which it's like, no, you can't treat other people like this. Like this isn't okay. But but there's something inside of you that's still like there's still good in you. And that's not a narrative that's not a that is a in a system that's optimized for clicks. It doesn't work very well.
Right. I was talking about this with a friend earlier this week, and he's a gamer, and he calls himself a nerd, objective nerd, and which that term has lost a lot of power. It was very powerful when I was a kid. It was almost the worst insult you could give somebody, but now it's like a badge of honor.
Right.
Some of my closest friends are nerds. But I was talking to him at a pub and about this, and we are kind of just riffing on life, and he made this quote from Star Wars. Somebody makes a quote that to a Sith, the Sith deals in extremes only, and the Sith are the evil guys, the bad guys. Deal in extremes only. Extreme right, extreme wrong, extreme good, extreme bad, that kind of thing. There's no subtlety or nuance in any of it. And I wonder how close, so we like to throw around the term evil, right? But when we actually look at that, this is a long tangent. Sorry. There's a guy named M. Scott Peck who wrote a book called People of the Lie. And he's a therapist and he's trying to discern what evil is. And he comes down to the reality that, for him, that the reality of evil is it's just complete and utter selfishness. And we could leave it at just complete and utter selfishness and self-involvement, but I can't leave it there because my mind is curious and I always have to ask why. Why? Maybe I'm so afraid I have to deal in extremes to keep myself safe, or I believe that's where I have to operate. There is no subtlety or nuance because I'm so deathly afraid. We like to talk about narcissists and that kind of, like there's a lot of buzz terms that fly around in pop psychology, and narcissism is one of them. And it's like, what do you actually mean by that? What do you mean? To me, narcissism is the most fully developed, well-formed defense mechanism and coping mechanism that human beings have to the extreme. I make everything about me because I have to be safe. And so I
Right.
have to make everything about me. And if I can make everything about me and I can get you to believe that I'm a good person, then I'm safe. Does that not bring about compassion in your heart for the individual that's operating in that space instead of demonizing them?
One of the things that we learned in attachment theory as foster parents was just this simple idea that typically the worse the behavior, the more tender the child.
Yes.
And it's like, I mean, people, it's kind of a lame analogy, but the analogy of a roasted marshmallow, like the crustier on the outside, the softer and gooier on the inside. It's like maybe there's this really, really tender part within narcissists who or people with narcissistic behaviors like um and and the only way to keep that they've found to keep that part of themselves safe is with this bulletproof layer of self-protection like you're describing.
Yeah. Right.
Much more
Well, and
compassionate view. Go ahead.
people don't like this. And I think the first time we met, I actually made this statement. It was in a group call, but like when we look at things like the Enneagram, um, the way I see it is it's the diagnosis of your specific brand of narcissism. Like the Enneagram to me is nothing more, and I think that's why it's so valuable, is it's really good at diagnosing your specific brand of narcissism. how you protect yourself, how you've learned
Right.
to operate in this world, the ego formation and everything around it, and how I've learned to make myself safe in the world. And the fascinating thing with me is, in my experience, is the most self-protective, narcissistic people I know absolutely despise the Enneagram.
Because
Despise
it
yeah,
reveals
the coping mechanisms, the ego formation. And I get it, it makes sense. But like I've had conversations with people that just will go from every different direction, whether it's a psychological or a spiritual or whatever, but just try and destroy it as useless. And what I began to see over time was this was too good at putting a finger on the issue.
you just broke open a whole bunch of stuff right there for me. So I think for people to understand, I like I want to just kind of shine a light on this. Like, what do you mean by personal brand of narcissism? Is we all have self-protective ways to protect ourselves.
Hmm? The
So shield.
flesh, like Paul talks about in Romans 7, the sarks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what you go to when you don't feel safe, use the Enneagram.
Yeah.
And for myself, if I want to look back on my, leadership development, if you want to call it that, personal growth, spiritual formation, whatever over the past year, like it's been a direct assault. I haven't actually gone back and checked, but I have no reason to doubt. You probably know this better than I do, even about myself. Who knows? But like direct assault on exactly those things that I've leaned on for self-protection. I mean, for myself, being independent is in doing things. My self-determination is absolutely one of those things. Um,
Yeah.
I don't. I mentioned this on our last episode. It's easy for me to throw out like, okay, this might be a dumb question because, well, if I open the door for you, then the question can be dumb, and I thought of it first, and
Right.
I don't have to be the stupid one, right? Like,
Right.
um, but one of the curious questions that emerges for me then is how do you grow in this? How do you allow these boundary the self-protective armor to be chipped away for yourself?
Well, going back to Romans 7, Paul, after saying all of that, I know the right thing to do. I set out to do it. I don't do it. Oh, wretched man am I. Da, da, da. And he says it's the flesh. And then there's this gasp, and it's almost like a cry. But thank you, God, for Jesus, the destroyer of the ego. I think if you give the Holy Spirit space to destroy the ego, and you have no idea what that looks like or what it means, but you're too tired defending and protecting and projecting and all that kind of stuff, and you just go, I don't want to live like this anymore. That the spirit starts moving in you. And like you experienced over this last year, chipping away at those very things that you have used to protect yourself, insulate yourself, encapsulate yourself from the world. And let's just be honest, that is such a painful, horrific experience. And I understand why most people avoid it. In the wide path, narrow path mindset that Jesus gives us, I get why people avoid it. I remember thinking years ago, I just started studying the Enneagram and just really diving into ego formation and all that kind of stuff. And I remember writing this in my journal so clearly. So you're telling me, I'm having this conversation with God. So you're telling me everything that I've used to protect myself the entirety of my life to lay that down and stand naked before the world. Yes. What's going to protect me? I am, but not in the sense that you think it. Oh, great. Like it was a legitimate conversation I'm having with God. That doesn't sound good. I don't want that. And yet my prayers would be, I want to be closer to you. I want to be one with you. I want to walk with you and with others. And so from a God perspective, okay, you're asking me for these things, which are objectively good, but what it takes to get there, you don't want to do. And that's the tension between the two. And so, like, in my opinion, to answer your question, how do you do that? Trust that he's walking you through it, and that's all you can do. Just surrender and trust. And there will, what was that movie? There will be blood, something along those lines. Like, there will be blood in this process.
Right.
There will be a crucifixion, there will be a torture, and the promise is there will be a resurrection.
Right.
I don't know if I told you this or not, but I was praying over, I think it was either last Easter or a few Easters ago, I was praying over the passion narrative, the arrest, the torture, the trial, the crucifixion, and I saw this picture, like I was walking that road, the Via Dolorosa, and I could see like the crowds around, and I could see the yelling and the screaming and the throwing things and that kind of thing. And I got to the hill, and there's already crosses up, and I saw Jesus standing next to the cross, and he was weeping. And he was weeping because I was experiencing, and we were experiencing, we as a collective humanity are experiencing that process. And I like fell down at the foot of the cross, and I felt like that was the end, like that was the whole journey. And I sat there for a minute, and then it struck me to look up at him, and I looked up at him, and he said, "Keep going, go through the cross, go through the death to the other side." And I'd never had that experience. To me, it was just come to the cross. And that's such an important and valuable thing. Has to happen.
Right.
But I'd never been told or never understood or never knew that the next step was through the cross to experience that death, the death of the ego. And I stepped through, and then it was as if like the scales fell off my eyes, like Paul in Acts 9. It was like then I could see like what was going on around me clear. And I think a lot of us, myself included, before that moment would go to the cross, stayed there, and then walk away. And I think he's calling us to come and die, whether that's spiritually or emotionally or physically, whatever that looks like. I don't know, and I don't want to investigate what that looks like for me or anybody else. But he's calling us to come and die. And John Foreman has a song called "The Cure for Pain." He's like, I spent years trying to get this pain to go away, and just that ache, and it never would. And I'm interpreting his thoughts, obviously, but like the cure for the pain was to actually go through it, to feel it, to experience it.
Yeah.
And I think Jesus tells us that over and over again when he references numbers, as far as the bronze snake being lifted on the pole and God commanding us to look, like cast our gaze upon that thing that we fear. And he says, like, the Son of Man will be lifted up on a pole as well. Cast your gaze upon that. Like, it's to confront our fears, our insecurities, our ego, the ways we've coped with it. I think pure evil exists outside of this realm. And Paul says in Philippians, like, it's not against flesh and blood we fight, but against these forces and powers and principalities in the heavenly realms. I think that's where pure evil exists, but I think we feel it here. We feel the call of eternity, the power of that, and we also feel the call of the the avoidance, the self-protection, the it's up to me and I got to solve this. I think that's how it plays out here. And if I've heard the enemy say anything to me over the course of my life, a consistent message is not today. I can deal with that tomorrow. It's too much for today. Put that off. Very syrupy, very reassuring.
Right.
Or it's not a problem with you. It's them. They're the issue. You're okay. You're good.
Right.
That's what I've heard from him.
There's kind of this long-standing joke, you know, never pray for patience. Ha 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 ha. And there's an element in which, okay, I get the joke. Like it's kind of funny. Like, but there's also this reality of, all right, let's really be honest. Like, you want patience. Like the problem isn't the answer of your prayer to patience. If these things that drive you crazy, if you would be patient, the things that come your way after you pray that prayer wouldn't be an issue. And and I think it's very revealing how I mean it's a couple days ago, my wife got the front row seat to my little complaining fest about how
She's VIP, huh?
exactly VIP guys. She didn't even have to pay extra for this seat. Like, can this dying stop? Can the pressure stop? Can I just be done? And lately, for myself personally, I feel like there's so many gaps that have been revealed for myself, and it's grown in intensity, and I'm physically and emotionally tired from this. I just want it to be over. And but he's not done. And so what do we do? What does he do? We take a breather, we take a rest, and that's exactly what it's exactly what it was for me this morning. I woke up early, took some space, took some time just to breathe. Um, and I'm gonna pick myself up and we're gonna go again and we're gonna lean into this, whatever it looks like. Death doesn't, if you've ever been around death, it's not, death is one of those things that can be absolutely beautiful and absolutely gut-wrenching both at the same time.
Right.
And and it's the same thing is true as we're going through the cross, journeying through the death, dying. These things are chipping away. There's a stench, there's a struggle, there's a fighting for life that happens, but there's also this beauty and glory of what we're starting to glimpse lies on the other side of this.
It brings to mind yesterday, this little guy trying to work. There's a homework assignment. He didn't do the complete homework assignment to no fault of his own. He thought it was one thing, it wasn't the other. So he's trying to catch up, and he is putting so much pressure on himself. And he comes up and he's just like, apoplectic. He's just like, he can barely speak.
Okay, you're gonna have to define apoplectic for
Oh
people who
yeah,
are
yeah,
not
just like
teachers.
just yeah, sorry, just distraught. Just like so stressed out, overwhelmed, emotional, shut down, can't speak,
Yep.
you know. And he I look at him, my heart's breaking for this little guy. Because objectively, as a 50-year-old man standing in that room, I know this does not matter. But to him, it matters the world. So I say, look at me, look at me. And he raises his eyes. I go, let's just breathe together. Just you and I. One, two, three. Okay. Now I'm gonna walk you through this. I'm not gonna ask you a question. You're not on the spot. We're gonna do this together. I just walk him through it. And as he gets to the end, you could just see his body relax. Buddy, you're not in trouble. It's okay to not understand something. It's okay to feel stress. There's no pressure here. This isn't a this isn't a definition of who you are. And just it was like this breathing thing. And just relax. It's okay to be reassured. You posted something yesterday, a quote from Blaise Pascal. And to me, I was like, yes, that's it. In that moment where we can sit silent in a room, God's sitting before us saying, just breathe with me. Just be here. Just rest. You think this is a definition of who you are as a person, but it is not. I see from eternity to eternity. I know who you are. Like, just sit with me. And Brennan Manning again in the Furious Longing of God, he tells this story about he was at this parish retreat renewal, and 3 in the morning he gets a knock on his door, and it's a nun who lives in the parish, and she says, "Can I talk to you?" And she starts to tell this story of sexual abuse of her whole life and how it's affected her and how she can't even go to mass because she feels so less than and so dirty and so guilty and so angry. And he just listens to her and he asks her to do this thing. He says, I want you to do this practice every morning. I want you to do it for half an hour. I want you to sit with your palms upturned. And I want you to just say this. On your in breath, I want you to say Abba. And on your out breath, I want you to say, I belong to you. Just keep doing that for half an hour. And in that, there's a union that happens, a natural breath, the ruach that comes in and out. And you're just still and allowing the spirit to comfort you. And I think that that's what we're talking about here is in the busyness and the chaos of our world and having to get things done and justifying ourselves and becoming and all that kind of stuff. God's just saying, sit with me and rest. Just sit with me and rest. And there's this call, and I think it's in Song of Songs 7, maybe 19. Come, my beloved one, come. The winter is over and the spring has sprung. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. The lilies are in the field, the turtle doves are cooing, like your long winter is over. Come, my lovely one, come. And there's a French theologian, I forget what his name is, but he believes in praying over that verse that that's what God was saying to Jesus on the cross.
Mhm.
Your long winter is over. Spring is here. I'm here with you. I'm not taking you out of this. We're just going to be together through it. And that to me is the power. I can't, uh, so many situations in my life I prayed, just God, take me out of this. And consistently, to be really honest, was quite angry with him that he didn't.
Yes.
But now I look back and I see he was saying that to me in those seasons. I'm here with you in this. We're together. Winter is over. We're together.
I'm fascinated by one of the things that was brought to my attention. Again, I am not the expert here, and I'm going to have to reiterate that for the millionth time. But
Neither of us are. Let's just say it here and now.
um, but the idea was presented to me that self-regulation is a myth. As humans, we don't learn self-regulation; we learn co-regulation. And and even as children, as kids, we talk about helping them to regulate, co-regulate. And certainly there are things that we can do to regulate ourselves better. But even as adults, we depend on others to help ourselves regulate. Um, but the picture that I have as you're sharing this is, which is exactly what you just described. I'm just again shining a light on it, repeating it, is co-regulating with God.
Yes.
Like he is the Father, perfect Father. We are down here in our mess, distraught. We have no perspective. Besides, the world is coming to an end. He's not freaked out, but he loves us and he understands where we're coming from. And he is inviting us to breathe. Take a deep breath. Let's calm your nervous system. Let's calm your spirit. Let's calm your mind. It's going to be okay. I'm here. I am your peace. And I was messaging a friend of mine yesterday and talking back and forth about life and what's going on and he came to Christ from the New Age movement and um, he just mentioned this thing. One of his goals had been and continues um, to be okay with whatever emotion experience that he's having, that he can, if life is turned upside down, I can be okay with that. And the big shift that he found is he's no longer just seeking peace, he's seeking his peace. And there's such,
Is that saying God's?
as in God's peace. I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
to clarify. Thank you. Thank you. Seeking God's peace, not just peace as an it, but peace as in God's peace.
There's a
And
person.
a person. And what's fascinating to me, even in that picture, going back to the idea of dualities, can we live with the duality of being so human? I'm stressed. I'm freaked out. I'm overwhelmed. I'm mad. I'm all of these things. Can we have that, which is our humanity? And can we also have a taste of the divine, which is God's peace in the middle of that? Can those coexist? Do we have to camp on one side or the other? Can we live in that place where both exist? And my personal experience has been that transformation only happens. Transformation doesn't happen when you're only living in his perfect peace. Transformation doesn't happen when I'm only camped out in my own mess. But when those two worlds meet and I can live long enough and stay long enough in the collision and the, dare I say, warfare between those worlds, the wrestling, the tension maybe might be a better word. If I could just stay in that place of tension long enough, then just by virtue of being and by virtue of him doing what he has wanted to do all along, he will walk me through that process of transformation, whatever that ends up needing to look like, to bring me to where I need to be, to who he's making me,
Right. In that union with him.
in that union with him.
As you're talking, it strikes me like, within pop psychology and sometimes in psychology, like we talk about codependency, and it's become a very, very negative term within our world. But if we look beyond it to the design and the longing, we were meant for union. We were meant to seek this peace together. As Jesus talks about in John 15, John 17, like, we're Father, you and I are one. Like, we want them to be one, we want them to be one with us, all this union language. Like, we were designed to be in union. We were designed to co-regulate with God first and foremost, and then with each other. And so it's a very natural impulse for us to look to co-regulate with each other. But we have to realize that if we're not regulated and they're not regulated and we try and co-regulate, then yes, codependency is going to be a problem. But it's part of the design that we're wrestling with and we're fighting with of we were designed for this, and it's hard for each of us to regulate individually, and we're trying to regulate together, and it's going to get messy when we try and do that. And that's okay. We can learn from it. But when we get burned by co-regulation, by union, we get this idea. I think both you and I have it. It's up to me. I gotta do it on my own. Become hyper responsible and hyper aware and all those kinds of things, and we start to isolate ourselves because of that, for safety reason. And I think that we could look at these terms and we could just say, oh yeah, this is a disorder that we need to deal with. True, it's something that we need to work on, but what's the origin of it? Is it a misappropriation of the design? Of course, everything within this world is a misappropriation of the design. Can we understand why? And can we give grace to each other in the why?
As you're talking, I haven't pulled out this trick on this podcast, and my little easel is back in the corner. I don't know that I'll pull it out, but like
I
I'm
love when you pull out the easel,
well,
just so
maybe
you
I should
know.
just let's just go do it. You're gonna have
I
to.
love when you do it.
All right. So,
Haley, we're going to need you to severely edit this part.
right. So the way that I picture this is
Shout out to our good friend Haley, who does so much to make this podcast happen.
exactly. All right. So, and in my mind, you have a quadrant that this is the axis. And the opposite, I mean, you can be codependent or you can be independent. But there's a completely different angle, perspective by which we should be looking at the world. Now, I don't know what I don't have the words for this. This is where you're supposed to jump in and help me out. So I don't look like a complete fool. Like, no,
well,
just kidding.
well, well, on that horizontal axis, that's the human element, right? It's our
Right.
tendency towards codependency or independent. So on the vertical has to be the eternal reality. So what would the eternal reality be?
So sure, this is the human axis. Um, well, I mean, fundamentally, what we're striving for is like codependence and independence really ends up being s- they're just means of a there's self-protective measures that ultimately, well, okay, here's maybe really what it is. These are we've been talking about polarities.
Mhm.
What if really there's something here in the middle, which is co-regulation? What if the extreme is I'm going to draw a hard line so I don't have to bother with you? Or what if the codependency is the other side of the extreme. We become so entangled that there's this fusion, there's no separation. And
Right.
if you want to do a quadrant, what if the quadrant ends up being human relationships and with God? And
Mm.
because there's a world in which with God, we 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 were talking about this in our last episode about the idea of deification, where if you have the idea of deification with no delineation between who is God and who am I, then it's just I am becoming God. That's not what we're talking about.
Mm.
Um, or even in this weird pursuit
Or
of
maybe even over here in the upper right quadrant. Yeah, it's I am God. It's the independence and there's a knowledge of God. I am God.
I mean, there's also this extreme case over here too, where it's like, I will only ever do something if God tells me to do it. Like if he tells me to wear
Hmm.
a blue shirt today, I will wear a blue shirt.
Right.
And I'm paralyzed to do anything. And he is all. And it's the over embrace of this idea that he is everything to the point of completely losing myself. We don't, he doesn't actually intend for us to disappear. He intends
Yeah.
for us, and that's what we see in the human relationship is that individuality completely disappears in a codependent relationship because I conform to you. I conform to my perception of who you want me to become, and you conform to my perception of who I need you to become. And it's all about these false images of false images that we're and expectations that we're conforming ourselves to. There's no objective reality.
There's no objective truth in that.
No, there's
It's all
not.
fantasy.
All fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so down here in the bottom right would be narcissism, right? Complete and utter independence and the human realm.
Right.
And there's an I am God there as well, right? Not in this sense of like the creator of the universe, but I am all that exists. My opinion is the only thing that matters.
Right.
Yeah. This is sorcery and witchcraft on this side. You look at God and say, "My will be done."
But then it's also, and you see this with humans, you see this with people. My will be done with you. I will control and manipulate you to get what I want to have happen. But there's this, that there's, and then really here is the blurring of the will through fantasy. What do you want? Well, I just want, this used to drive me crazy. And probably because I can be so susceptible to it, but yeah, in the culture I grew up with, there was very much an age preference, and there was almost this disgrace about going first because it meant you were older, but it was also an honor to go first. And you would see these old guys arguing with each other, like you go first, no, you after you, okay, you okay, fine, somebody goes. Like, but it's you see this, it's such a little thing, but you see that on this side. It's like, well, what do you want? Well, I don't know. I want what you want. Well, I don't know what I want. I want what you want. Well, okay. And it's like, and whether that's with humans or whether it's with God, God,
Mm.
I just want to do your will. Okay, great. Like you shouldn't kill people. You should love people. You should do justly, love mercy, walk humbly. And that's what I want. You should pursue relationship with me. That's what I want.
Hmm.
Now, what do you want?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
for some
It
people,
reminds me of the old trope of like married people, right? What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want? And we spend an hour talking about it, and nobody's eating, and then we're just hangry at that point.
exactly. And we know how marriages go when you've got two angry people trying to work through conflict.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a dynamic here. And again, we're not experts. We're just kind of processing this externally in the midst of what we're seeing and experiencing and saying this is what we're seeing and like value the comments and the reflections and the ideas of other people watching, listening, that kind of thing. Like where what do you see about this? Because we're certainly not experts. We're not telling you this is how it is. We're just saying this is what we're seeing, and processing it externally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this was a deep dive today.
That was a deep dive today.
I love it.
So I'm just going to dovetail on what Kevin, what you said. If you and I think this is like this is the scary part is not all of you guys who are like, yeah, we agree. Like this is you're right. I think the scary part is it's scary in quotes, but not really in quotes. It's like, no, yeah, I have a perspective that's very different than you. I disagree with you, and so especially if you're open to dialogue, we want to dialogue.
Yeah.
Um, we want to be in a place, we want to stay in a place of humility where we don't, I don't know, don't posture ourselves as having the definitive answers, don't posture ourselves behind, we're right, you're wrong, to maintain this curiosity. So if you have that, and especially if you have that, if you look at that and you're like, y'all crazy, and you're
Yeah.
having a conversation, yes, please.
Yes, please. Would love it.
um,
That's the part of union, right? Like we can have these places where we come up with this ridiculous Cartesian plane, and you're like, that is ridiculous. That's dumb. Like this is how I see it. That's how we move further along.
right.
Like let's have the conversation. Love it.
Love it. So we're gonna call it a wrap with that. Drop a comment.
And
Find us somewhere.
we're gonna apologize to Haley.
We're gonna apologize for Haley. Or we might just apologize for listeners and just have this dead space in the middle. You guys are like, what are you guys doing? Well, we're making Haley's life easier. Sorry. During that time, now if you obviously it's too late. So hopefully during that time you went and got yourself a little snack or something like that. It's like the intermission.
Set change.
Set change. Need to have some music to play or something like that next time this happens, or just have it ready to go. All right. It's been great, Kevin.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this conversation a lot.
So thanks again
So we
go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead, you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So thanks again to all of you guys who listening in, going on this journey with us. Um, you heard our request for feedback, interaction. Love to hear from you. And until next time.
Until next time.